Well, there ain't no turning back now, my friends. Winter is here. The pattern is turning colder, and the long range looks cold as we get into February. And we are tracking the possibility of 2 winter storm systems over the next 7 days for some areas that have not seen very much winter weather so far this winter. Welcome into the Big Weather Show. My name is Jason. I've been tracking weather a long time. All of the 12Z data is in. I've looked at it all, and pretty soon you're going to see what I have seen as well. If you're new to the channel, please hit the subscribe button. Thank you for being here today, and certainly share the content, give the content a like, and in the comments section, if you think of it, let me know how much snow is on the ground at your house. Here at my house, it is 0, but we did have some graupel this morning, kind of as a surprise. We usually get downsloped here in Morganton, but some of that survived the mountains, had a few snow squalls up the mountains as well. And also let me know if there's anything I can be in prayer about for you. Thank you for all of you who have supported me by joining and commenting. Continue to do that. I read and respond to all of those, and I'm happy to pray for anything that is going on in your life. Right now, what you are looking at is the GFS snowfall output over the next 14, 15, 16 days. All right, so that's what we're looking at here. Obviously, it's an operational model. Obviously, those are fraught with error way out in time. Obviously, the GFS is one of the worst models, but it has some validity to some of this. I'm going to show you some of that as well here in a minute. We're going to take this kind of in stages. Storm number 1, we're going to hit first, the potential for storm number 2, then we're going to look at the pattern. In the last couple of days, I've talked about some foundational items that kind of help how these storms kind of come together and what we need to see and how the ensembles work. I'm not going to go back through all of that, but I'll have those videos linked at the end of this. So check it out if you get a chance. We'll come back to the snowfall in a minute. We're not going to make you wait for that, but I want to show you a couple things here as we get into this. Here's the satellite image. As you can see, a very nice day for much of the United States. A lot of sun out here. There's been a lot of cloud cover in the last several days, but sunshine and some mild temperatures out west, clouds and rain in the Pacific Northwest, another little system working through the Great Lakes and Northeast, bringing some unsettled weather up there, mainly in the form of snow showers and some wintry mix up here in New England with wispy clouds and some just some scattered cumulus clouds and alto cumulus here through the mid-Atlantic area and back into parts of the upper southeast. Now, as we go over the next couple of days, there ain't nothing going on, right? We've got some winter weather up here today in New England and the Northeast, wet weather in the Puget Sound area towards Seattle. That it will abate over the next couple of days. And look at this, just nothing, a few showers and scattered around, but high pressure and control for much of the nation. Another system kind of works through the Great Lakes as we head toward Wednesday. And then the fireworks start. Big high pressure dropping in out of Canada, behind a wave of low pressure in the mid-levels and several little waves, and you can see the precipitation response here on the surface map. We're going to get right into that. Here's the temperature profile today. The front has blasted through by the time we get into this evening, and you can see the cool, if you're in the eastern part of the country today, it is windy and the temperatures have fallen. It is cold. We've got another little warm-up toward the beginning of the week, and then here comes that blast of cool air out of Canada, cold rather, and behind those little systems that are going to be sparking the potential for winter weather somewhere in the east. And we're going to stop it right here for now, but look how the cold air just really penetrates deep to the south, big ridging out west, and you guys are warm underneath all of that. Now, we're going to look at the GFS ensembles, the European and the European ensembles. So those are the 2 main models. We've got all these different AI models and the Canadians and all of this stuff. As we get closer, we'll look at some short range data. But right now we're looking at the globals, and we're going to look at some trends over the last 24 hours as well. This is the GFS mid-level energy map. Okay, this is at 500 millibars where we look at our energy in the atmosphere. And here's what we're watching. We're watching wave number 1, wave number 2, wave number 3. How these all interact matter a great deal, and where they interact matters a great deal. Okay, so here's what's going on as we get on out into Wednesday of next week. Early Wednesday morning, we approach 12Z, which is 7 a.m. East Coast time. This short wave is a problem. All right, so this whole thing is kind of a problem. There are possibilities that can blow up a big winter storm, and there are possibilities that can give you a whole bunch of nothing. GFS is kind of somewhere in between. The European model is not so enthusiastic. One of the problems is this whole entire trough, you got a big ridge. See these lines kind of go up like this, and the trough kind of goes like that. This whole trough is too far to the east. What we're trying to hope for is that all of these pieces of energy, this one, and this one, all come together in this area here to spawn a low pressure right here and then zoom up the coast. All right, so there's some issues here. Number 1, the whole trough axis is a little too far to the east. So what we're hoping for is that all of this dives straight down and gets together way down here in the deep south. Does that happen on the GFS? Okay, so there's one piece of energy kind of going on. It probably is going to try to spark a little weak area of low pressure here off the southeast coast. But then here comes these next two pieces getting together. And look what the GFS does. It sort of starts to close this off instead of over Alabama or Georgia, up here over the southern Appalachians. It starts to close off. You can barely see it, but the little contour starts to close off right in this area here. You see that? And that's where it's closing off. A little bit too far to the north to really get a big low cranking here off the southeast coast. So you're probably going to get a low pressure response, kind of a baggy little low like that at the surface. And we'll see in just a minute how that plays out. And there you have it. It closes off big, nice packet of energy, but it doesn't really do much in terms of tilting the trough axis negative until it gets off the coast, and all of your divergence is well off the coast. Now you get a little bit of divergence in the mid levels, which creates rising motion. You get some of that back into the parts of the south here in the southeast ahead of this upper level, but this is all upper level driven. Because we don't have a low pressure, we're not able to transport moisture off the Atlantic, and so you're having to wring out what moisture you have with the upper level dynamics. That's just not a way for the most of the time to get a big snow event. You need all of this energy in the base of the trough back over here toward Alabama, so you can spawn a consolidated area of low pressure that can help transport moisture in off the Atlantic and out of the Gulf. And then you can have, and then you've got to compare that with the dynamics in the upper levels. Now you've got a big storm to work with. So this is what the GFS does, but this is impressive nonetheless. You've got a two closed contour upper low that's moving across the Carolinas. No blocking though. That's a problem too. I've talked about this before. You get blocking up in Canada, slows the flow down. It backs it up. Like when the toilet's clogged, it comes up instead of goes down. That's what happens here. You block it up here and block the flow. Things slow down and back up, and you have a chance to form a low pressure. We don't have that, so the flow's progressive. Everything heads to the east. Here's what the surface map looks like, all right, as we get on in toward Wednesday morning, kind of a quasi-frontal zone setting up here. So you get some sort of frontal snows through Ohio and Pennsylvania and up into New York, back down into Kentucky and West Virginia. And you start to see a little bit almost as we roll out in time, you see how the trough is kind of consolidating down here, taking a neutral tilt here through Georgia. And you get a little bit of a kind of a baggy low pressure. These contours here are isobars here at the surface, and that's a sort of a baggy low pressure, very, very weak area of low pressure, and it starts to form, and you still have this baggy kind of wave off the coast with a little bit of dynamics here coming in with that upper low to squeeze out some moisture. And so you get a little bit of moisture along DC up into the Delmarva up to New York City and southern New England. But the low is way out here off the coast, and all of the precipitation is with it as that upper low goes. It kind of captures that low and stalls it and brings some of that back, but it's too far off the coast to really do a lot. So the GFS snowfall output, produces a little bit of snow over Tennessee and up into West Virginia. You get a little bit more here in the southern Appalachians and the western facing slopes. You got that upslope that helps to create rising motion as it goes up on the mountain, goes up the mountain. You get clouds and snow, and then on the downslope sides where I live, you get very, very little. But we're seeing a little lee side snow shower activity, convective snow enhancement through the northern portion of Virginia up toward DC, even back into Pennsylvania, Allentown, places like that. Get some Utica, Ithaca, looking at some snow and all of that. But a lot of that's kind of frontal driven. The low pressure stuff would be off the coast by this point. Here's the trend on the GFS though. This is GFS ensembles, and you can see centered basically mid-morning Thursday the 15th. This is that upper low, and it's ticking south back to the southwest and strengthening. If this trend were to continue, then we would actually see a better reflection at the surface. So it's not out of the question that we could see a few more of these trends like this to create potentially a more consolidated area of low pressure closer to the coast. That would be what we would hope for. If you're creating a wish list at home for things to hope for the system number one to really pan out, all right, you want the trough axis to be farther to the west, and you want the energy to consolidate at the base of that trough all together and do what the GFS is doing here, the GFS ensembles, and continue to trend this back toward Alabama and back toward Mississippi. If that were to be the case, then we would start to see an upper echelon event take shape along the East Coast. Now that's the GFS ensembles, and here is the GFS ensemble snowfall output. Not a lot of snow, but you can see over the last several runs, over the last 24 hours, it has increased the outside of the mountains snowfall. You can see that. See that? The 2-inch line's coming down here to Pennsylvania, the 1-inch line's coming down into Virginia, and so you're seeing some progress there. If those trends continue, we could be talking about something different by this time tomorrow, okay? That's the GFS. Here's the European. We're not going to spend as much time with the European. Look what it does. Number 1 goes off the coast, takes some of the energy with it, and then here's number 2 and 3 kind of getting together, or 1 and 2 rather. Number 3 is already gone, talking about short waves. But look at this. These two are still separate here, and look where it closes off now. This is closed off over North Carolina and Virginia by the time it closes off, and so it's even farther to the east and a little bit farther to the north. That's not the trend we want. Sometimes people ask me and say, Jason, you talk about all this stuff. You're not making a forecast. You're just looking at model data. I can't know what the atmosphere is going to do when a complex situation like this sets up and you have energy that's trying to interact. The best we can do is take a look at what the models are showing us, try to, the best we can is understand model biases, look for trends in the models as we get a little closer and see if they consolidate around a solution. That's why weathermen hedge. That's why meteorologists hedge on this stuff, is you're out 5 days out, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 days out. Particularly when we don't have a big window of things to go right. We have to have a lot of things to go right, and they have to go right a specific way to get a big storm, and it makes it precarious. And I don't have any idea how these short waves are going to interact together outside of what the models show us, because I can't model the atmosphere in my mind. I can tell you that in pattern recognition, from my standpoint, I think the trough axis is a little bit too far to the east. I think there are too many things that can go wrong at this point than can go right. Before, I was seeing some trends that were trending positive. Now we're not really seeing those trends all that much anymore across model suites. And so I think we're probably looking at a lower end event than a higher end event. That's if I was making a snow map, that's how I would draw it up today. But I'm still watching the models because things change and the models don't know the atmosphere inside and out either. The best they can do is kind of gauge what's going on based on the limited observations that they have and then go through their calculations. So it's not a cop-out, it's just a reality. You can't know the fluidity, the whole entire fluid of the atmosphere, how it's going to behave when there's so many different short waves interacting together. And the final solution depends on exactly how they interact. It's a very complicated position to be in. And so you have to understand that. And then there you have it. Okay, so that's what happens. It consolidates up here around Virginia, Roanoke, and then it goes on off the coast. As far as the surface map for the European goes, we start to get in here toward Wednesday evening and then head toward Thursday morning. And look what happens. You sort of have a frontal passage here. There's your upper low kind of coming in there. See the cold core coming through and a little bit of light snow in Virginia, Pennsylvania, central Pennsylvania, from Pittsburgh over to central Pennsylvania here. And then still don't really have a solid low pressure off the coast. All of this is upper level driven and frontal, kind of a front driven as it comes through. And so not really looking at a big consolidated system either. Some heavier snows here along Long Island toward Cape Cod. And if we take a look at the final product here in terms of snowfall, the European is much less enthusiastic across Tennessee, the south and southeast, and even up into DC. You get a little bit of snow there, but not much, 2-3 inches, and then back up toward Long Island and the coastal areas is where the European's more excited about. If you take a look here at what the European ensemble is doing with that upper level low centered Thursday morning, mid-Thursday morning, it was kind of trending back a little bit to the west, but now it's sort of trending back a little bit to the east. And you tend to see that oftentimes as you sort of move into the event. You see a little bit of a trend one way and then a bounce back the other way. And so I am not discounting the possibility that we could still see some meteorological magic happen and get a surface low closer to the coast, which is what we're going to need for widespread snow. That said, this is a very strong, very dynamic upper low, very consolidated in terms of its energy. And so I do expect that some areas up here in the northern or in the southern and mid-Atlantic and into the Pennsylvania area, kind of interior sections of the mountains especially, are going to get some nice snow out of this. And some of you will see some flakes, as it turns out. European ensemble, not really changing all that much. There's the European ensemble mean snowfall output. So we're not seeing a lot of trending action here. It's not been enthusiastic about this storm for the last couple of days. Now, as we head on out and take a look, that's storm number 1. All right, so still kind of things are up in the air, but we're just going to have to pay attention to how these pieces of energy come together. And I'm just not all excited about a big storm now, as I'm seeing some things kind of stabilize in the modeling as we go forward. If that GFS trend, kind of an outlier, if it trends continue to southwest, then we got a different story, but we're going to watch it. Here's what the GFS is showing in terms of storm number 2. Big kind of sharp consolidated trough. See this ridge going up out here? There's your trough kind of going back like this. This is a much better trough axis, but the energy is consolidating here. We want the energy to consolidate down here. That will help us get a storm going. And so far, it's a little bit too far to the north, but it's not a bad look overall. We're talking 153 hours out, so that puts us in towards Saturday, Sunday of next weekend when we start to see some of this happen. The steeper this ridge goes up, the more diggy this energy will be, the farther it gets down toward the Gulf, and then we could see a response of a low pressure. And there you have it. It starts to turn neutral here just east of the Mississippi Valley, and then it kind of goes neutral, negative, maybe as we get on through towards Sunday. So not a bad run of the operational GFS. Here's what the surface is going to look like there as we get on out towards Saturday and Sunday. It looks like some snow breaking out across the upper south and into the mid-south, and then across into North Carolina. Temperatures a little bit more marginal, at least here, because it's not going to be very, very heavy precipitation. And then you start to get a more of a surface reflection that builds off the mid-Atlantic and pounds the interior northeast with snow. Okay, so that's the GFS operational as we get on out toward day 6. All right, so just keep that in mind. Don't hang your hat on the operational GFS. Never a great idea. European and the European ensemble always usually score the highest. So when you're looking out in time, look for those to score the highest. GFS comes in way down the line. Some of the AI stuff is scoring pretty well, and those kind of go up and down depending on where we are. I mean, in the fall, other things were scoring better. The UK Met sometimes scores better. So all of that kind of goes up and down. All right, so here's the European itself for that same time period. Much more of a kind of a broader trough. You see how it's kind of broader and not so sharp, and you got the upper low over Illinois. That's not a great signal for an East Coast snowstorm, all right? And then it just continues to keep a trough here in the eastern portion of the country and the northern portion of the country. And here's your surface map there for storm number 2 on the European. Look at that. Just some snow showers with some of this upper level energy, not really a consolidated storm until you get way over here out in toward Sunday evening next weekend. Throw some snow back into Maine. That's it. Everybody else high and dry. That's what's going on now. I'm going to go back here and show you the operational European. That's storm number 2. So long way to go to watch that. A couple of different solutions are on the table. What you're going to root for here, if you're rooting for a snowstorm with storm number 2, is this ridge out west to spike up like that, energy to dive down back here. Not back here. This is no good. We want it to dive back here. We've got energy coming in with this first storm into Minnesota. Not great. You want energy to coming back into Montana or North Dakota and dive straight down to the Gulf. That's how you get a big storm. All right, so that's what we're watching for. Now, as we go on out in time, 186 hours, we'll stop it here at 240 hours. This takes us through 10 days. Cold pattern setting up through the next 10 days on just about any operational or ensemble suite you want to look at. Beyond that, the MJO looks favorable for continued cool weather. Look at the European. Just continues to stay cold in the east. Look at this ridge going all the way up north of Alaska, sending cross-polar flow down. This is very, very cold air. You want to see how cold it is? Look at this. 850 millibar temperature anomaly. Here we go. Cold this week. Cold next weekend, cold the following week. Look at these pinks coming in. It's very, very cold. And look what happens by the end of the run, 2 weeks out. The polar vortex is sitting over the Great Lakes in the Northeast. That's going to be very, very cold. And if we can get some energy down here, we could see some snow along with the cold. Here's the European ensemble for next week. All right. So this is what's going on for the potential next weekend storm. Kind of a bowl-shaped trough too, so it sort of agrees with its deterministic run. But then look at this big PNA ridge spike way up here. We get on out to 240 hours. That takes us through next Wednesday. And look, still cold in the north, cold in the east. Brings in ridge for a little bit of time, and then boom, back to that cold pattern with ridge along the west coast. Very much in agreement with the actual deterministic run. That increases our confidence in that, right? Okay, see how that works? Now, here's the GFS itself, just to show you that. We're going way out in time. There's storm number 2, and we get on out here to 240 hours. And the GFS is starting to put a ridge here in the middle of the country. Hopefully that's not right, but is it temporary? Well, there it scoots to the east and trough back into the plains. We're going to have a big high pressure working in here and starting to see an Arctic front slip in. If the GFS turns out to be right, this takes us in toward the 27th of January. Here's the GFS ensemble mean, just so you can see that too. Cold over the next 10 days. And then we get on out beyond that, it starts to warm us up and then puts the trough back over into Canada and across the northern tier. This would be a cold north and potentially warmer south, but some of this cold air is going to slip into the south and east over time. If we take a look at our MJO and tropical forcing, we see that most of the models have it going into phase 7 by the end of January, headed toward phase 8, potentially 1 and 2. Here's the European, kind of the same situation there, going into phase 8 by the end of January. That's the phase that you want it to be in if you want winter weather and cold and blockiness for the East. European monthlies take it in here and kind of kill it again in the circle of death, but it could get around here into phase 8, 1 and 2 for a time period and keep us in the cold weather pattern as we get on in toward January. So a lot of signals converging to show that. I'm glad, because a lot of times we get into this time of year, we're seeing staring down the barrel of an unending torch. We may warm up some, but it doesn't look like any pattern is going to lock in and stay in place for longer than a week or two at a time. And we've got a lot of winter left. So don't tell me winter is over. It's not over. Maybe we don't snow big the next week or so. Maybe we do. But either way, we've got a lot of winter left, and a lot of cold air is continuing to build and recharge in Canada. As long as that's the case, we are in the game for winter weather. Here's what's going on out here today in terms of what you cannot see on the screen. If I get it on a better display, you can actually see it. There it is. There's our alerts map. And I'll zoom in here just a little bit. You can see high wind warnings for tomorrow up here in Montana. Higher elevations going to see gusts into the 60s and 70s. Wind advisories up and down the mountains today up into the east, and some winter weather advisories over here along the Great Lakes for snow, 2 to 3, 4, 5 inches of snow. Up here in the Tuck Hill Plateau could see as much as 12 inches, and then 3, 4, 5 inches up here in northern Maine, and a little bit of wintry mix below that. And air quality issues back out in the Pacific Northwest. Got an inversion setting up out there for a few days. Going to have air quality stuff going on all week with a stagnant air mass. And if you like wind, today is for you. This afternoon, very windy, gusts into the 30s across much of the east, even into the 40s in some spots, and higher elevations could gust into the 60s, but very, very windy over the east today. That'll settle down a little bit as we head into the night and lose the mixing of the afternoon. And then across the north tomorrow, you could see a little bit of wind, and there's your wind coming into Montana. That's it, folks. That's what I've got for you. I'll continue to watch the data. Stay tuned here. Share it with friends and family. If you have any questions, let me know. As I said, I read and respond to all the comments. Follow me on X at Real Cold Rain there. Be back tomorrow with another update. In the meantime, hope you all have a blessed Sunday. It's good to talk to you. Thank you for being here, and we'll see you again soon. All right, take care. God bless.